Hey folks, it's Jim from the Movie Wine here to review Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. Joaquin Phoenix plays Freddie Quell, an alcoholic World War II veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and struggling to find his place in the world. Moving from job to job after several incidents, Freddie, inebriated, comes across a yacht owned by Lancaster Dodd, a charismatic leader of the philosophical movement known as The Cause, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. Dodd allows Freddie to stay and join their cause as a fan of Freddie's homemade alcohol concoctions. While there, Dodd exposes Freddie to the exercise known as processing, to which Freddie is heavily questioned with the objective of conquering any past psychological traumas. Proving to be cathartic, Freddie takes a liking to the cause, but as Dodd tries to ignore the naysayers who question his practice, Freddie starts to revert, frustrated by Dodd's odd methods as the cause grows more tired with Freddie himself. The Master was one of my most anticipated films of the year, if not the most, given the concept, the cast, and of course, director Paul Thomas Anderson, who I think might be the best filmmaker of the last 20 years. Hard 8 was a promising start, while Boogie Nights fulfilled on that promise. I have my issues with Magnolia, which still might be his most divisive flick yet, but it's unquestionably ambitious. Whether Paul Thomas Anderson lands entirely on his feet or not is arguable. Going from expansive stories to smaller ones, PTA's next feature, Punch Drunk Love, is almost undescribable. It's a unique film in this canon, and I've never seen anything quite like it, relying more and more on visual storytelling. Calling it a romantic comedy just doesn't seem to do it justice. As for There Will Be Blood, well, it's a masterpiece, and I believe it to be possibly the best film of the last 10 years. A film of fathers and sons, religion versus capitalism, and their growing power, There Will Be Blood set once again in California was similar to his previous efforts thematically, but it was also something new and different altogether, showing further growth. Granted, yes, filmmakers like Robert Altman, Martin Scorsese, and as of late, Stanley Kubrick, seem to have provided influence for the relatively young filmmaker, but I still find that he has his own original voice. How's The Master? Well, it's different yet again in ways I can't fully articulate. In fact, I had to see it twice before I was sure of how I felt about it. It seems to have divided many in the same way that Magnolia did. However, this will be a flick that many will debate and discuss over its meaning in the months to come. Some may be disappointed by the lack of answers, perhaps because there are none. This is a film that is truly open to interpretation. Some could argue that because of this ambiguity, Anderson's ideas are merely half-baked. While I don't agree, I can see where some might be coming from. I'm still unsure if it's wholly satisfying, but I enjoyed drifting along with the characters nonetheless. On a technical level, the film is marvelous to no surprise. I unfortunately can't speak for the 70mm format because my local art house theater wasn't showing it, but from what I understand, it's well worth it. I can say that even without Paul Thomas Anderson's usual DP, Robert Elswood, The Master is beautifully shot by Mihai Malmari Jr. with every meticulous composition. Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead provides another mesmerizing score that rivals his work on There Will Be Blood, using clarinets and woods, while Jack Fisk's production design of the 1950s is impeccable but subtle. Every casting choice is so precise. Jesse Plemons as Val, Lancaster's son, has a striking resemblance to Philip Seymour Hoffman. Laura Dern shows up briefly as a member of the cause, allowing the congregation to stay at her home to continue their practices. As for Amy Adams, she goes against type yet again as Dodd's wife, Peggy. She knows her place, yet she eludes power over him. She is both equally warm and manipulative. Pregnant, she isn't naive about her husband's female followers, and she remembers to keep him in check. If Dodd has a master, one could argue it's her. At times, some of the supporting players seem a bit underused, and Anderson introduces plot threads that are never addressed again. It's somewhat of a missed opportunity that we don't see more of Val, who tells Freddie that Dodd is making the cause up as he goes along. More importantly, I wish we saw more scenes between Dodd and his distractor of a son. However, this is just a further compliment to the world PTA creates. The primary focus is on the dance between Phoenix and Hoffman, who are more or less sparring with one another. Phoenix is brilliant in the role. It's one of the all-time great performances. I doubt I'll see a better performance this year. Yes, it's a manner performance as seen in Phoenix's entire body language, but it creates a lived and breathed-in character. It's method acting at its finest that recalls the imposing postures of Robert De Niro in Raging Bull, or Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. As Freddy, he's uncontrollable, dangerous, unpredictable, and damaged. He's like a dog who needs a leash. Through processing, otherwise known as auditing within Scientology, we get glimpses into Freddy's past before he joined the Navy, with a passed-away father, an institutionalized mother, a sexual relationship with his aunt, and an old sweetheart he promised he would return to, named Doris. He finds his kindred spirit in Dodd, a charming, sympathetic man who has more control over his animalistic tendencies, and sees Freddy as a welcoming challenge. Those who are hoping the Master will be an expose on Scientology may be disappointed. Not all of Dodd's methods hold up to scrutiny, and sometimes his members find him contradicting himself, but some of Dodd's exercises do prove to be therapeutic. Still a charlatan, he gives comfort, or the appearance of comfort, to others in a time of uncertainty but promise after the events of World War II. Dodd is not, however, immune to a good drink and sexual desire. It's here that the Master becomes more than something like a simple surrogate father and son story as seen in films like Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, and There Will Be Blood. These two are more like brothers, hugging one second and then playfully wrestling the next. It's a platonic love, and on some level they need each other. Undoubtedly, it is one of the more interesting dynamic relationships I've seen in a film in a long time. The film lacks pivotal set pieces like his past films, and the third act is not as conclusive and as rewarding as some would understandably want for the drifter in his long journey to self-healing, but the Master questions our own understanding of happiness and its meaning. It also happens to be one of the best films of the year. That's it for the Movie Rewind. Have a good day, folks. Until next time.